Okay. Live. Get rid of that. Move that over there a bit. Good morning, everybody. It is Friday, the 12th of December. This is AI with Kyle. We're going to be running through the latest AI news of the day. And there's one very big piece of news that we've been waiting for the last week or so, which is ChatGPT have a new release, GPT 5.2. So this is the, obviously, update to 5.1, and it is the response to Google's Gemini 3, which put OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT, into code red last week. They pushed out a model very, very quickly, and we see the results of it, and it's good. It's very, very good. I've been playing around with it this morning. I'm going to have to formulate my own full opinions over the weekend by actually using it, coding with it, building with it, actually making stuff. But from first impressions, great. Really, really good. What I like to do is always have a task which I'm unable to do. So with the previous model, there's always something that I run into eventually, whether it's using GPT 5.2 or Claude or whatever it is. There's always something that I can't do, or for some reason AI hasn't been able to do it for me. And then when a new model comes out, I immediately go and try it with that task. And this sounds like a silly example, but this particular release, there's a computer game that I used to play when I was a teenager or a child, and I had snatches of memory about it, like just little pieces, little bits and pieces of it in my head, and I was trying to identify what it was. And I've tried this with all of the previous models, and I've never been able to do so. I know this is a silly example, but finally I cracked it this morning, and it is a game called Virus 2000, which was on the PC. Let's see if but ChatGPT 5.2 was able to walk me through and help me identify this game. None of the other models have been able to do that so far. So far, that is my big win with it. A very silly, a very trivial example, but it is something that the previous models have been unable to help me do. So I'm pleased with that. I'm going to be, as I say, testing it fully over the weekend, getting it loaded up into Cursor and building some stuff, seeing how it is at that kind of level. But so far, impressed. So is everyone else, it looks like. So let's have a look at the benchmarks. As always, we have to take benchmarks with a pinch of salt. We need to see what other people are saying, and we need to ultimately use it ourselves and see how it fits into our workflow. However, we start with the benchmarks. So, how are they? Good. Really, really good. Actually, I'll pull up this table. This is the ARC AGI-2 leaderboard. So this came out, the most recent one we saw was a couple of weeks ago with Gemini 3 Pro absolutely knocking it out of the park. This is Gemini 3 Pro here, and it was way higher than anything else that was out at the time because Opus 4.5 and GPT 5.2 here and here were not out. So this graph used to be down here. They've had to extend the scales because of 5.2. So this is Gemini 3 Pro. This green one up here, this is a bit cheeky. They've left this out. This is actually Gemini as well. This is Gemini 3 Pro Deep Think, which is a more experimental model. So Google still have something in play up here. But as you can see, the GPT 5.2 are dominating. So we have had another step change in terms of the ARC AGI-2 evaluation. It's the closest we have. This is very debatable, but the closest we have, the proxy, the benchmark we use for are we getting close to artificial general intelligence? It's a fuzzy subject, so we're not going to go into that in too much detail. However, GPT 5.2 is doing very, very well. So well that we've had to reset the scales once again. So previously it got to about here. So this would have been the graph, and everything down here was a lot more spaced out. Now we've had to increase the y-axis quite a lot. It's almost a logarithmic jump actually, which means that all of these previous models are now getting squished down into irrelevance down here. What I did want to point out though is Grok 4 over here, a refined version of Grok 4, scoring apparently on the ARC AGI-2 30%, and Gemini 3 is 32% it looks like, and then we have GPT-5 high and extra high at 44% and 53% roughly. Grok being here, I don't think many people are talking about this. That's really impressive because remember, Grok has only been around so XAI, the creators of Grok, have only been around for a couple of years. They started in March 2023, I believe, so 2.5 years. Compare that to OpenAI, which is actually celebrating its 10th birthday. Yesterday was their 10th birthday, so happy birthday to OpenAI. XAI are doing quite impressive things. Beside what you think about Elon Musk, if you love him or hate him, doesn't really matter. XAI have put out models that are competitive in a very short amount of time, extremely short, because Elon Musk has thrown so much money and so many resources at it that they've been able to brute force their way into the competitive landscape, which I think is extremely impressive. But obviously, the news of today is GPT 5.2, absolutely knocking it out of the park. What we are going to look at, though, is not just it in the benchmarks, but what does this practically mean for work and life? So looking at Matt Schumer here, he works for Hyperwrite AI, and he's talking about rule number 1 in AI. What a frontier model can do today at an extremely high cost will be possible for orders of magnitude less dollars in 12 months. So I think this is probably more subtle but incredibly important. So a year ago, ARC AI verified some results from O3. So O3 was a model that ChatGPT, OpenAI put out during their 12 days of Shipmas last year. They released O3 and they're like, ta-da, this is the best model on earth. But it was extremely expensive. It was extremely expensive to run. So a year ago, we verified a preview of the unreleased version of OpenAI O3 High that scored 88% on ARC AGI-1. But each task, to run that task, cost $4,500. So it was an extremely good model, better than every model out there, basically, but it cost so much money to run. You had to run it for so long that it wasn't really practical to use it. That was a year ago. So that was the 12 days of Shipmas last December. OpenAI released that. Today, this is ARC Prize saying this, we have verified a new GPT-5 Pro X High state-of-the-art score of 90.5%, so higher than the O3 task, but it cost $11.64. So it's a higher score, and it costs about 400 times less than what it cost a year ago. This is the kind of exponential growth that we're seeing right now. And this is why when people are like, oh, AI can't do this or AI can't do that, you need to point them towards these kind of facts and figures. It's like, well, it's getting really good extremely fast. And it's hard to see, especially with the language models, because they're not as, well, obviously they're not as visual as the video and the image models where you can see progress. But with the language models, it's figures like this. It's, oh, we're able to do what cost $4,500 a year ago. We can do that now for $11. Oh, and it's slightly better. It's a better model and we'll get even better results. That's a lot for 1 year of progress. There are very few technologies that move at that kind of clip. So this is the context that we need to see this all in. Everything is getting better all of the time in terms of model progress. Right, I'm going to hop over to some questions, and then we're going to talk about what this actually means, because it's fine looking at benchmarks, but what does this mean for work? What does this mean for your jobs? What does this mean for how we actually apply these AIs in real life? And we're going to look at GDPVal, which is really a useful new benchmark, which is looking at actual human tasks like working in Excel and filling out contracts. But first, let's hop over to questions. How do you feel about contextual commerce in socials? So I could buy your top directly. Contextual, I don't know enough about it. Do you mean being able to see what I'm streaming and buying stuff off the live stream? I mean, I don't have anything to sell off the live stream, but I imagine it's a good business for people who do that stuff. So stuff like TikTok Shop is absolutely huge. It's of no interest to me, although I do buy a lot of junk on TikTok Shop. I don't know about you guys. Every once in a while it will pop something up and I'm like, oh, I don't need that. Oh, it is only £2, and then I'll buy some junk. Grok lies a lot. I've caught it so many times. Interestingly, with the new GPT 5.2, let me see if I can pull it up. Apparently the hallucination rate is down by 40%. Let me see if we can find that data. It might be here, 10 hours ago, Mashable. I don't have that data on me, but I saw it this morning. Here we go. Most notably, OpenAI says that GPT 5.2, go away. GPT 5.2 is more accurate and will produce fewer hallucinations compared to GPT 5.1. OpenAI's documentation states that GPT 5.2 thinking has an average hallucination rate of 10.9%, still quite a lot, compared to 16.8% and 12.7% for GPT-5 thinking and GPT 1.5 thinking. So they've reduced it by, they're down to 10% or 11%, down from 17 or 13%. And then when GPT 5.2 is given access to the web via a browser, and there's no real reason to turn off search anymore, its hallucination rate drops to about 6%. So hallucinations are still very much a thing, and we need to be careful when we are using any artificial intelligence. We need to check its answers, and this is why having domain expertise and domain knowledge is still very useful, because one, you know what to put in, you know what questions to ask, you know how to get the AI to kind of challenge you on things, and you can co-intelligently work with it, and two, you're able to check the outputs on the other side. You aren't just taking an output from ChatGPT and taking it at face value because you have the expertise to know whether it's talking complete and utter nonsense or not. So that's why it's still important to have a human. However, this is a drop of, a couple of percentage points in 2 months. So this is a problem. Hallucinations are inherently a part of how large language models work. In a weird way, everything they generate is kind of a hallucination. It's just that most of the hallucinations are factually correct. But you have to remember that LLMs don't have a database of knowledge. They don't have a list of true and false facts. That's not how they work. So everything it's creating, as it starts to tumble those tokens, is kind of a hallucination. It's just sometimes it's wrong. And that's when we call it a hallucination, because we don't want it to be wrong. We want those imaginations, we want them to be correct. But that said, it is getting better. They are reducing the hallucination rate very, very rapidly. And as soon as we give our LLMs access to tools, so the ability to search the internet, the ability to have like agentic workflows where they're checking each other's work, for example, and kind of double checking things, checking references, we can reduce those error rates even more. This is the kind of stuff that companies like Deloitte need to do, because they keep, twice this year, Deloitte is being caught basically sending out a report that was full of AI hallucinations, once to the government of Australia and once to a provincial government in Canada as well. You got to be careful, at least for now, until we reduce those hallucination rates to so small that we stop worrying about them. And also humans get things wrong too, a lot. The speed of development is insane. I worry the infrastructure won't develop as fast. Yeah, so do a lot of AI companies. So the bottleneck is potentially going to be electricity. And this is why we're suddenly, a lot of the AI companies like, well, we're just going to send our data centers up into space. We'll just launch them in a rocket. And which just seems like this crazy sci-fi idea. Part of the reason is that so they can, one, have access to basically infinite electricity, because you put a data center up in the sky, you cover it in solar panels, have big arrays of solar panels pointing at the sun, and you put it in an orbit so it's always facing the sun. So you have 24 hours a day solar power. Plus there's no atmosphere in the way, so you get even more solar power. So that is one thing they're looking at. The other reason is that puts control of the infrastructure into the hands of the AI companies. Right now they are waiting for the energy industry to get its act together. They're waiting for governments to kind of allow for the building of nuclear power stations, of sustainable energy, etc., etc. And that comes with an awful lot of red tape, a huge amount of red tape. In the UK right now, there's talk about opening a new nuclear power station. I think it's up in Scotland. It's going to take decades if it happens, because everything takes a long time. I mean, we can't even build a a bloody railway. Um, again, I know I bring this up every single day, but this is why people are worried about China, because China do not have this electricity problem, because they have been putting resources into, here we go, into energy generation, electricity generation for the last few decades. So you can see this is the US. There's a small upward incline. This is the EU going down almost. And then everyone else is kind of flat, basically. Whereas China realized quite early on that they're going to need an awful lot of power if they are to have a technologically advanced nation. You need a lot of electricity. You need electricity to run your factories and to become a superpower, basically. So they started investing in their infrastructure back in the 90s, 2000s, and they have consistently done so, which is why they now have, they're more than 10 terawatt hours. So China, electricity, let's see if we can pull it up. I'm using AI overview, so it might be wrong. Oh, there's a video here about a solar farm bigger than Bristol, which is a city in the UK. They're taking things very seriously when it comes to energy, whereas the West is not. And part of the reason why the AI companies are talking about launching satellites into space is so they do not need to wait for the governments. They do not need to wait for the energy infrastructure. It's that, or build mini nuclear power stations. So Google are looking at doing that. Microsoft are looking at doing that. Basically, these little modular power stations that sit next to your data center, and they are run on nuclear. But again, there's a lot of red tape involved in that. So if you instead get permission to launch a rocket, you can kind of do what you want in space, or at least for now. There will be regulations as we move forward. This is also, I did a video about this yesterday, really good news for Elon Musk. Love him or hate him, he has the top commercial star flight, I don't know what you even call it, space flight company on Earth. SpaceX are going to be the companies who are delivering data centers into space, because they're set up for that. Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, etc., they're not necessarily going to want to get into the business of building spaceships and building rockets. That is a very different thing. Whereas Elon Musk has already set up SpaceX. He realized 10 years ago, or whatever it is, that this is going to be important moving forward. And up until now, there's been demand from like telecoms companies to send satellites up into space, but there hasn't been an absolutely killer need to use spaceships. We might now have it. It might now be OpenAI, Google, etc., putting data centers into space. And the person who's going to be doing that will probably be Elon Musk. So kudos. He was very prescient in this particular case. Morning. Hello, Nikki's daughter. One of them. Oh, I think we've had another one of Nikki's daughters. Claude says, I use 4 different LLMs when I'm researching something. That's the smart thing to do. You have them check each other's answers, basically. And you can build that into an automated workflow where they all kind of cascade from one to another and they catch each other out. So I do this sometimes with code, and it's funny. Sometimes they give snarky responses. Like I'll pass something from ChatGPT to Claude, and Claude will find an error, and it would be like, well, I'd expect that. It's like, well, ChatGPT seems to have messed up here. It's like, come on, calm down. Very smart from China, investing from the ground up. Yeah, I mean, they are very serious about their infrastructure. I was there earlier in the year. I took some trains in China, and the trains in China are just phenomenal compared to, well, Europe. And I was about to say America. America doesn't really have trains, or not that many. Quick question, which development platform do you use for vibe coding? So for pure vibe, like when I don't want to see the code, I don't want to touch anything, I use Lovable. And when I'm actually building out a project and I want to have a bit more control, I use Cursor. Specifically inside of Cursor, I use Claude Code, but I use the cursor interface. That said, cursor, actually, I'll jump over to this. This is a good opportunity. Cursor have just added the ability to visually see what's going on in the code base. So you have basically a local dev server up and running with your application or your website visible, and you can now click on the elements and directly talk to the LLM. So it's up on my screen right now. You are able to see a visual representation. You're able to click on the element you want to work with, and then it's actually got a visual editor, so you can change things directly without using AI, or you can talk to the artificial intelligence and say, hey, this part here that I've just clicked, or the bit that is highlighted, I want some font variations, or we need some more white space, or this isn't working because such and such and such. So they've added a visual editor directly into Cursor. Previously, Cursor was a little bit more of a learning curve to use, because it is a traditional development environment, whereas something like Lovable looked like ChatGPT. So you could immediately jump into Lovable and be like, okay, cool, I've got it. Cursor, for a lot of people who have never coded, when they've opened it up for the first time, it's like, ooh, what? This is scary. It's still more of a learning curve, but they are adding in features like this, visual editors, which make it way more accessible. I don't think Lovable even has this level of visual editor. Like, you can't click on elements and say, do this. I haven't used it for a few weeks though, so they might have added that. But very, very, very cool. Cursor are doing some amazing things, so I highly recommend Cursor. There's also, if you want a cheaper one, there's Antigravity, which is currently free. Let's check. Yep, still free. So Antigravity from Google is, I mean, once you open it, you're like, oh, looks like Cursor, because yeah, it kind of is. It's good. I am not actually using it. I'm using Cursor, but that's because I already have my projects there. I'm used to using Cursor. But if you want a free alternative, then check out Antigravity. It's free for now. I imagine later it will be priced competitively with Cursor. And if you can see on my screen right now, it basically looks like Cursor, or I should say it looks like VS Code, which is what Cursor is a fork of. But that for me is what does really well. And I've tried out a bunch of different development environments, but yeah, Cursor's very, very, very good. Does Cursor ship to the Apple Store? Yes. So you'll have to go through Xcode to do the kind of final testing and then shipping. But yeah, you can build Swift apps. You can build in any language. That's the problem with Lovable. Lovable will default to Vite, which is good at web apps, but it's not going to help you build an app which goes on the telephone, you know what I mean, an iPhone, and it's also not good for building websites where you need search engine optimization. So it's very specific. That said, you can convert from Lovable. Once you build your app, you can convert it into an iPhone app. It's just additional steps. Whereas if you build in Cursor from scratch, it's going to build in Swift. It's going to build in whatever you need to natively go to the App Store. You probably still need to go through Xcode for the validation, etc., but that's relatively minor. Cursor's brilliant. Do not let the IDEs have access to system level prompt. Yes. I think it was on Antigravity. Was it Antigravity recently? It nuked somebody's hard drive because they'd given it full access to their file system, and it just formatted their hard drive and everything on it. I don't know why they were running it out of the root directory. Well, I do, because I didn't know what they were doing. But then Gemini was like, oh yeah, I see the problem. Sorry. I've formatted it. So it is a problem. Okay, so we've looked at GPT 5.2. And yes, it's great, perfect on the benchmarks, etc. What does that actually mean, though, for the day-to-day? So I want to have a look at GDPVal. GDPVal, it's not easy to say, especially because it's similar to GPT. So we're going to look at we're going to look at the GPT 5.2 GDPVal, which is an evaluation which tests models on activities that contribute to GDP, gross domestic product. So supposedly these are activities that are economically valuable. So we're going to look at what Fijisimo, I love that name. She is the head of applications, CEO of applications, OpenAI. Such a cool name. So she says, I'm going to follow her. GPT 5.2 is here and it's the best model out there for everyday professional work. Okay, fine, show us. On GDPVal, the thinking model beats or ties human experts on 71% of common professional tasks, like spreadsheets, presentations, and document creation. Oof. That's a lot. The other way to read this is it is better at or equal at 70% of tasks as humans. Yeah, that's a lot. It's also better at general intelligence, writing code, tool calling, vision, and long context understanding, so it can unlock even more economic value for people. Early feedback is excellent, and I can't wait for you to try it out. So GDPVal is, let me pull it up, it's an evaluation for measuring the performance of our models on real-world tasks. This is a ChatGPT generated evaluation. So OpenAI created this evaluation. So we have to take it with a pinch of salt because they know what goes into this evaluation. Therefore, they can overfit, they can train their model for it. However, it is open, like you can have a look at it, and other people run on GDPVal. So they have the paper, they have the leaderboard. Let's look at the leaderboard. Yeah, I assume 5.2 is top. What's that bar? Oh, parity with industry expert. So across all tasks, it looks like GPT 5.2 is 49.7%, and then 71% is, wins and ties. Okay. And then they have it broken down by the actual markets. So let's have a look. So customer service, it wins, and it's much better than humans. So they're using 50% accuracy as the human benchmark. And in the case of customer service, it's 75% wins and 82% wins and ties. So they put it up against humans, basically. And it is knocking out all the competitors in every single task. Oh, not in editors, interestingly. Very interesting. So Opus 4.5 is still winning here. But again, the bigger news here is that they are generally beating the humans. So the fact that it gets, let me put it back, 70.9% wins or ties against humans, that's the big headline here. The winning is actually only 50%. So it wins 50% of the time against humans, and it wins or ties 70% of the time against humans on tasks. So this does mean that a lot of tasks can be removed from humans, and that obviously has large impacts on jobs. So a job is, this isn't replacing jobs specifically, this is replacing subtasks within a job, because every job you do is not just one thing. You don't just do one task again and again and again. Generally, you have admin, you have operational stuff, you have meetings, you have all of the other stuff around your core task. So things like spreadsheets, presentations, document creation, etc. The GTP 5.2 is extremely good at, better than humans in a lot of cases. That does not necessarily mean that the core task of your job, whatever that is, that the AI is better at it. It does not protect you from the future though, because as we saw, this is moving extremely fast into all areas of human intelligence. So I think this has kind of gone under the radar, that it is better or equal to human experts on 70% plus of tasks, of GDP positive tasks. That's the scary thing, because we look at these models like, wow, it's really good. That 70% should be scary. Even if you're very pro AI, that should stop you in your tracks and be like, oh, here we go. This might be it. We are very, very close to whatever AGI looks like, and this coming along and basically removing tasks from our jobs and removing jobs entirely. And if we're not there next year, we will be in a year or two, because everything is moving extremely fast. So it doesn't matter how positive, how hyped you are about artificial intelligence, that 70% should cause you a little bit of concern. And then this is compared to the previous models. So GPT-5 thinking fell way below. It's about 40% wins and ties. GPT 5.2 thinking is now at 71%, and GPT 5.2 Pro, which is in the $200 a month package, is about 75%. So winning or tying with human knowledge workers on various tasks. If you want to see the tasks, they actually have a whole list of them, which is really interesting. So like let's have a look. Oh no, these are the particular jobs. So professional, scientific and technical, it's software developers, lawyers, accountants and auditors, project management, financial insurance, it's customer service representatives, financial managers, financial investment analysis, etc. It has all of the jobs here. And then it has the actual tasks broken up as well. I'll put this in the newsletter because GDPVal is really cool. It's a very cool evaluation, and it's worth looking into because this gives us a more realistic idea of whether or not these AIs can actually take jobs. Because all of these other benchmarks are a little bit more abstract, and things like the International Math Olympiad or Humanities Last Exam, they're quite abstracted from what we do on the day-to-day, which is Excel spreadsheets and presentations and talking to customers and taking meetings. The core work, that's the stuff that we need to be looking at where AI is having an impact. Amazon has so much info and foundational tools. Where's their place in the AI future world? So they actually have a couple of good models. And I always forget the names of them because they don't really publish them. They're focusing on the enterprise and the B2B market. So as adjuncts to AWS, Amazon Web Services. So unlike a lot of the other AI companies who are going for kind of wide popular markets, Amazon are just beavering away in the background, providing enterprise level LLMs. And they have, what's it called? Nova. There we go. Is it Nova? Yes, Amazon Nova. So it's foundation models, and they're good. They're very solid models that they are just quietly building in the background. Here we go. I've got the Nova models here. So Nova 2 Lite, Nova 2 Pro, Nova 2 Omni. Specifically, though, a lot of these are for training, for fine-tuning and training yourself. So you'll be deploying them inside of your enterprise. So they're aiming at the enterprise end of the market because, honestly, that's where a lot of the money is. ChatGPT and OpenAI are hemorrhaging money right now, whereas certain companies like Amazon are just quietly in the background building products for existing customers who already have a lot of money. So they are deploying them into AWS with these clients and probably making a huge amount of money. Their kind of consumer play is Anthropic. So they've invested into Anthropic, the makers of Claude. I forget how much. They've done a second round. Let's pull it up. So yeah, this was back in March. They invested another 4 billion into Anthropic. And they've committed 8 billion in total. We do not know what percentage they own, if any. And AWS is the preferred cloud provider for models. So it's similar to how Microsoft have invested into OpenAI. So OpenAI is built on Azure, which is Microsoft's cloud computing. So they build, train, and run inference off Azure, and then OpenAI is bundled into Microsoft Copilot, which, as you've heard me talk about, I don't think much of it. They managed to kind of neuter ChatGPT somehow. So they're very kind of intertwined. Anthropic and Amazon have something similar, where Amazon put a lot of money into Anthropic. They run on AWS instances. They do all the training on there. And presumably, I wouldn't be that surprised if later, further down the line, Amazon just swallows up Anthropic and brings them fully in-house. Maybe. Although Anthropic is eyeing an IPO as well, which would make them independent. But that would allow, well, either for Amazon to convert into equity in whatever's after the IPO, or to cash out and make an awful lot of money. But Amazon are doing their own thing in the background. They're just doing it very quietly, and for enterprise level customers. They don't care about getting it into the hands of the general public, because frankly, that's not where the money is. It's a lot better to sell to people who have money generally, and Amazon know this. What's the YouTube channel? The same as on TikTok. So just look up I am Kyle Balmer or AI with Kyle, and it should pop up. The Great Divide is coming. Those who aren't using and learning will be at a disadvantage. Yeah. This is why part of my mission is to try and my explicitly stated mission is to help 1 million people get AI ready, to get on board with what's happening, so that they're not caught unawares, basically. Because if 10 years down the line you are refusing to use this technology, you're going to be like somebody who never learns to use a computer, or somebody who doesn't learn to use the internet. It's just going to put you at a massive disadvantage for most things, especially work. I mean, I see people now who don't use computers and don't use the internet and think, wow, what a great life they have, because they're detached from that. But it is going to make life a lot harder. That has to be an extremely conscious decision to not involve yourself with these technologies, and that's fine. I respect that. If you engage with it intelligently and you decide, no, I'm not going to use this, I'm going to pursue my art or whatever it is, fine, 100%. What I'm seeing though is not that. Is not people who are intelligently engaging and then deciding to refuse, conscientious objectors. It's not that, but instead it's people who are burying their head in the sand and coming up with excuses because they don't want to engage with what is happening. They don't want to deal with the fact that this is a threat to their jobs. They don't want to deal with the fact that a degree and all the skills that they potentially have acquired over the last decade or so might be worth nothing. That is a very, very scary feeling. Ethan Mollick, in his book Co-Intelligence, he talks about how anyone who's thinking enough about this will have 3 sleepless nights once they start to use AI and they start to realize what this means for humanity. They'll have 3 sleepless nights where they're going through all the ramifications, all the horrors that could happen, and then just it takes a few days to process this and realize that, okay, well, it is happening. So I've catastrophized, I've gone into the worst case scenarios, and now I need to engage with this and work out what my life is going to look like moving forward, what the life of my family and my community is going to look like moving forward, and how can we carve out the best space for ourselves as possible. How can we make sure it's not just the multi-billionaires or trillionaires now who are doing well from this? And how do I protect myself from the downsides, etc., etc.? And that requires intelligent engagement. And that's scary. That's really scary to do. But it is super, super, super required, unfortunately. So that's why I'm doing these lives. That's why I'm putting out these guides. That's why I'm talking about this stuff, because I want to make sure people are at least getting their bloody heads out of the sand and getting ready for what's coming. Random question: do you make automations? If so, is your favorite N8N, Make, or Zapier? I use I'm terrible for this. I use them all. So Zapier I use for really basic things, set and forget. So for example, I have this community. So when you join this community, I also ping emails off to my email server, and vice versa. If you join my newsletter, I ping the email to the community. Very basic, just moving data back and forward. For that, I use Zapier because I know it's not complicated. It's just adding a pipe and sending information from one place to another. Very, very simple. When I am doing something more complex, like I built a tool which scrapes TikTok videos, so I give it a username. It will go through and scrape all of the TikTok videos, grab the captions, grab the title, grab description, etc., and then use that to give me ideas for video. That's something that's a bit more complex, so I use something like make.com for that, along with modules like for Apify, etc., etc. And N8N I use for self-hosting. So you can self-host N8N on your server and run it in the background. Really, really cool. Also, N8N are releasing version 2, I think on the 15th. think on the 15th it's coming out, or is it already out? So I'm very excited about that. I think it's coming on the 15th of December, so next week. So I'm going to be jumping back into NA10 next week. I should be doing Christmas shopping, but no, I'm going to be building NA10 automations. They're all good, really good. However, what I found more and more is I am just building them in Cursor. So if I need to connect my website, this website that you see here, let's say it's got some tools. So the AI business quiz, for example, you go through this quiz, gives you some information at the end, and then it has an email capture which says, oh, do you want to get more information? Do you want to get a custom report? And if you do, give your email. Previously, I would have set it up so that the email is sent via Zapier, never quite sure how to say it. Now I've just custom coded that using the API. So it just connects, and I don't need to use any third-party tools. That is possible because of something like Cursor. That is possible because of something like Lovable. You talk to your AI and you say, hey, I've got this website. The website is built in such and such. These are the frameworks I'm using. It's hosted here, and I want to move the information from there over to here. How do I do that? And the coding tool will be like, okay, cool, no problem. I need this API key. I need such and such details, and we'll get it all connected. So you can actually bypass the tools like Zapier, Make.com, and NA10 to a certain extent. You can also code your own flows. So for example, let's see if I can do it. So this is the back end of my website. I'll very quickly show you. Sorry, it's going into the weeds. So at the moment, I've built an automation which pulls all my videos from YouTube automatically. And once it does that, it connects them to existing newsletter issues on the website. Actually, the easiest way to show you is this. So let's say this one. So this has been pulled from YouTube. It also pulls in the transcript, it pulls in the description, and then it runs that through AI in order to generate some more stuff, and it connects it to the newsletter issue. Let's see if this works. Yep, I was worried that wouldn't work because we're live on stream. So that's being connected to the newsletter issue automatically, and that's all programmatically, basically. And that automation is all happening in the background, and that's all been built by the Vibe coding tool. Previously, I would have used Make.com to do that. I'm using the automation tools less and less because I can now build those automations directly. I can build pieces of software. Again, I am not a coder. I am a marketer. I start businesses. But the fact that we have these tools like Cursor makes it possible to build these kind of automations. I'm about to build today, I'm excited about this, I'm about to build a tool that auto-generates variations of Facebook adverts. So I have a product, I want to start running some more adverts. To do that, I want to generate hundreds and hundreds of variations of a Facebook ad. So I'm going to go and find good Facebook ads that work well. You can find them on the Facebook library, as well as swipe files. I'm going to feed them into a tool that I'm going to build. I'm going to provide the details of my product, and it's going to spit out hundreds of variations. So with different headlines, different taglines, different images, etc. That was something that I wouldn't have been able to do a year ago. But now I'm fairly confident I can build an internal tool and have that working this afternoon. That's, I think this is what's exciting about vibe coding, is the ability to turn ideas into reality very, very quickly. And that's why I highly recommend it as a skill to build up. Don't try and build anything so complicated for your first project, but start with something simple, and that kind of unlocks your imagination. You're like, oh, could I do this? Could I do that? And generally the answer is yeah, probably. And it doesn't need to be enterprise level security and scalable to work for 10,000 users, because most of the time it's just something that you're going to be using as your own tool. So it kind of doesn't matter. So ignore all the naysayers. Do you use Vercel? Yes, I do. I do use Vercel. There's plenty of other alternatives. Netlify is good, but I use Vercel personally. Awesome. I need to learn Cursor. So with Cursor, there's not a huge amount to learn, I would say. Do a quick tutorial video just to familiarize yourself with the interface. But the main thing is choosing the right model and learning kind of the structure for working with a vibe coding tool. If you can use Lovable, you can use Cursor. You just need to get over the interface issues, that's all. You should do the same with the target demos for the ads, not just the creative. Yes, I will try that. I'm going to be doing retargeting primarily. I've been doing a lot of stuff. Yeah, don't assume your app is secure to release to the public from vibe coding if you don't know code. Yes, 100%. So I personally use vibe coding primarily for internal projects, 100%. Although I have sold a bunch of things which have been vibe coded off the back too. Google AI Studio has been fab for building apps. Google AI Studio is great. It just has a terrible UI and UX. But let me put it up. AI Studio Google. Oops. What they have added is this build mode here. They added this a month or two ago, which is I mean, it looks like Lovable. If you've used Lovable, this is basically the same, where you describe your idea and it will build it for you. The main limitations are it uses Gemini. That's fine though, because Gemini is now very good. Previously, not so good. And this is free. So this is a really good way to start using a vibe coding tool if you don't want to pay. The way that they make money later is if you do deploy, if you want to scale this, then you'll pay for the API usage. So you're basically paying every time it contacts Gemini 3. That's very low. Like each time it sends a message back and forward, it's like 0.00 whatever dollars. Is very, very small. So it's only at volume where this starts to matter. With if you have millions of people, well, not millions, thousands of people sending messages, then your bill will start to mount up. Hopefully by that point though, you have some form of monetization in place. But again, that's don't worry about the problems of success until you've started building. So just go and play around with this. It's great. I tried using Google AI Studio, but kept getting stuck at authorization. So switched to Replit. Replit's great too. Honestly, Replit, Lovable, V0, Base 44. God, there's probably some others. They're all good. They're all because they're all basically interfaces that sit on top of ChatGPT or Claude, and then they just interface between. So that's how they make money. They're just making a small cut on top of that API usage, basically. So as long as Claude is good, as long as ChatGPT is good, you're going to get good results. And that also means that the vibe coding tools get better and better and better because these models are getting better and better and better, which is cool. Replit is really good if you're building apps like for a phone as well, whereas Lovable tends to be very specifically for web apps. Cursor is a level above, yes. So the way this is very vague and there's a lot of overlap, but I would say start with Lovable to kind of get a feel of what you can build. Start with basic projects too. With Lovable, it will deal with your backend, so your database and all of that kind of stuff automatically. They have something called Lovable Cloud. So it just removes a lot of friction. So you don't have to set up your own super base. You don't need to connect it to things. You don't even need to use GitHub initially. You don't need to get your own AI API key. It's all done inside of Lovable. So it removes a lot of the friction so that you can just kind of start and you can come up with something basic. The downside of that is it removes some control from you. That is the trade-off. So they're making things a lot easier by making it more integrated, by making it kind of seamless, but you lose some control. Once you start to feel constricted by that, once you're starting to think, oh, how can I do this? And you realize like, oh wait, I actually can't do this in Lovable. Once you get to that point, that's the time to move over to something like Cursor. So Cursor looks intimidating when you first open it because it looks like a traditional development environment. It's based off VS Code, so it is a traditional development environment. But on the right-hand side, there's basically a chat window. And that's where you're going to be doing most of your work, at least initially. What it does, though, is it allows you to see more. Let me see if I can pull up a screenshot of it. So you can see what it looks like. It just looks more intimidating. This is what it looks like. There we go. So it looks like that. So initially, for a lot of people, that's terrifying. because it looks very professional. But what you've got on the right hand side, this is basically a chat panel. You have a little chat screen down here. You can select the model you want to use here. This is all in Russian, which doesn't really help. Then you can see your code here. If you don't want to see your code, you don't need to look at it. Ideally, you start to investigate and learn how to code as well. But again, you can wait for that. And then on the left-hand side, you can see your files, or you can see the files that are staged and ready to go to GitHub. So your cloud storage, basically. I'm simplifying here. But this initially, if you've never coded before and you open this up, that's going to scare the hell out of you. So I would say start with Lovable and then move on to something like Cursor. And then once you are comfortable using Cursor, I would check out Claude Code. So Claude Code is basically an agent which works. You can put it inside of Cursor. That's what I personally do. So then I have all of the benefits of Cursor, like being able to see my files, being able to see everything here, the preview window, etc. But I'm running Claude Code as the agent. So instead of using this chat window on the right hand side, I'm using Claude Code. That's just a personal preference. That said, Cursor have their own model called Composer, which you can use it in this window here. Very, very good, extremely good. So that is an option as well. But these are things to worry about later. Start with Lovable, start with building a basic project just to kind of stretch your wings and realize like, oh, damn, can it do this? Can it do that? And realizing, yeah, it can do these things. And then once you get the bug, you can expand out. This is also why I don't recommend people that they dive into coding first, because learning to code normally is quite dull. There are courses, there are big, very, very thick books, although I'm not sure if anyone uses them anymore, and it's just a bit of a slog. That's great if you want to build a strong foundation, if you want to get a job later. Absolutely, and you should maybe still do that anyway, because it's really useful to know how code works, how architecture works, etc. However, what I recommend is you start vibe coding to get the bug and to get excited by the activity of building. And once you have that, you start to learn the fundamentals of what it is you are building. So you get the excitement first, and then you worry about the details as you move forward. It's a bit like when you learn to fly. If you are getting your private pilot's license, the first thing they do is they get you up in a plane and they say, all right, turn left, turn right. And there's very little theory, there's very little kind of preparation for that. They just get you into that plane so you can move it around. I was learning to sail this summer as well. It's exactly the same thing. They got us in a dinghy and showed us how to kind of basically move it around. And then we went back to the classroom to learn what it was that we were doing. It's the same with coding. You get the bug by building stuff that's useful for you, building stuff that you can show your friends and be like, hey, this is kind of cool. And then from there, absolutely go and get the fundamentals off the back, but only once you've actually got the excitement and you've got the bug for building stuff. That's my personal recommendation. You can't ship from Lovable. Yeah, you can ship from Lovable. I've got a few things. So I ship this from Lovable. I've got, what's the other one? This is from Lovable. These are all products that I've shipped out of Lovable. So Lovable generally creates web apps specifically. So they sit in a browser. You cannot easily ship to a telephone, to iOS or Android. That's a different type of ecosystem basically. There are ways to convert from Lovable into Swift or into whatever you need for your telephone. However, it just kind of adds a few more steps. So it depends what you want to build. Generally, work out what you want to build, talk to ChatGPT or Cursor beforehand and say, hey, this is my technical level, this is what I want to build. These are the tools I'm looking at. I'm looking at Replete, I'm looking at Bolt, I'm looking at Lovable, I'm looking at Cursor, etc. What would you recommend? And it will be able to give you good recommendations. Also, that's the kind of question you can come and ask in the community. So if you come over to community.ai with Kyle, people are asking questions and I'm in there answering, as well as other people who know a lot more about stuff than me. So again, I'm not a coder. So we have other people in the community who are, they're software developers, so they will be able to jump in with much better understanding. This is a free community, by the way. And if you do want to get in, come to aiwithkyle.com and click join community. Is it secure? So most security that you'll be doing, not all security, but most security is going to be on the back end. So if you're using something like Supabase, I'll pull up Supabase, a lot of security will live there. That said, you need the front end of your app to be secure to secure your back end too. So you can use something like SemGrep. Do I mean SemGrep? Yeah. Do I mean SemGrep? It's not called SemGrep. Yeah, this one. You can use AI analysis of your application. This is free here we go, community edition is free, to scan your app. Also, Lovable and Cursor have built-in security scanners which will pick out the most egregious problems. They'll be like, oh, you've actually published your environment variables and people can see your API key. It will catch that kind of stuff. That doesn't mean it's going to be 100% secure, but that's the kind of thing that you can worry about as you start to scale. Again, I find it's not helpful to think of all of the different things that can go wrong immediately, but as we start to build, as we start to create something, we deal with them as and when they come up. So, and if security is a big issue, you can also hire somebody. If it's such a large issue that you need it fixed before you can go anywhere near public launch, which is going to be the case if you're building a medical app, a legal app, etc., then you hire a security consultant. You give them $10,000 or whatever it is to test and make sure you're okay. Is your community based in school? No, it's in Circle. I did look at moving to school, but school is very it's very basic. It's very, very basic. If you are looking for a school community though, which talks about vibe coding in particular, I will recommend Marcin's. So my friend Marcin runs AI Builders, which is school.com/AI Builders. I'm in there as well. I'm active in there. It's $100 a month, $50 a month to join. So it's not free, but it's a very, very good community and very active. Okay. Oh wow, we're coming up on the hour. So looked at Cursor, looked at GPT 5.1. I think I'll quickly talk about this because I can't not. So Disney are investing $1 billion into OpenAI. This is a weird drawing up of battle lines, I think, because Netflix are talking about purchasing Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers own DC Comics. So Netflix, I think, are doing this as an AI play. So they're going to be able to train artificial intelligences on intellectual property that they own via Warner Brothers. So I think Netflix are going to be shifting into AI TV and film production. This also suggests that Disney are doing the same. So Disney own Marvel. So interestingly, we have a DC versus Marvel, but going to different tech companies. So we have Disney and OpenAI and Marvel on one side, and we have Netflix and Warner Brothers and DC on the other. Going to be very, very interesting. So Disney is making a $1 billion investment in OpenAI and will allow characters on Sora AI video generator. So this is a really interesting deal because when you think about it, should OpenAI be paying Disney to use the AI, to use, Spider-Man and Elsa, etc.? Should OpenAI be paying Disney for that, or should Disney be paying OpenAI to put them into Sora? It's a big question, and I'm sure one that's been debated. I think this is some kind of barter deal. So this is what we have specifically. So it's a 3-year licensing agreement. Sora will be able to generate short, user-prompted social videos that can be viewed and shared by fans, drawing on more than 200 Disney, Marvel, Pixar, and Star Wars characters. I mean, that's a hell of a roster when it comes to IP. Agreement will make the selection of these fan-inspired Sora short-form videos available to stream on Disney Plus. Interesting. So you can make Sora videos using Disney characters, and then they will go onto Disney Plus. Now, interestingly, Netflix have also announced Shorts. Where is it? They're doing. Oh, where is it? They're not calling it that. Short clips. They are releasing a new part of the platform. Here we go. Short videos, vertical feed. So this is coming out shortly as well, which is going to be a vertical feed inside of the Netflix app, like TikTok. So it looks like both Disney and Netflix are wanting to push into short form video, like like TikTok and like Instagram Reels. Makes sense because that's how a lot of content is consumed, for better or worse. Disney and OpenAI affirm a shared commitment to responsible use of AI, blah, blah, blah. Alongside the licensing agreement, Disney will become a major customer of OpenAI, using its APIs to build new products, tools, and experiences, including for Disney Plus, and deploying ChatGPT for its employees. Okay, so Disney is also going to be using OpenAI or ChatGPT inside of its business, which is a huge client. And Disney will make a $1 billion equity investment in OpenAI and receive warrants to purchase additional equity. Interesting. Very interesting, especially with the IPO coming up. So this is a fascinating deal, because it's not just we're going to give you money, you're going to give us this. It's a whole kind of patchwork of different deals, different elements going together. I mean, kudos to whoever put this deal together. It's hard to tell who's going to do better from this, because 1 billion is not that much when it comes to AI investment. But I think the bigger win here is the ability to generate Disney characters inside of Sora. Now, obviously, this was already doable before they cut down the restrictions. So this is not a training agreement, interestingly, because Sora and ChatGPT and the image gen have already trained on Disney's intellectual property without permission. They've already trained on everybody's intellectual property without permission. This does not seem to retroactively say that that was okay, which is probably good for OpenAI, because that would open the doors to every single IP holder saying, hey, you're paying Disney, you've got a deal with Disney for this, we want a deal too, for the training. So there's a lot of interesting commercials and legal shenanigans and things not being said here as well. But this kind of is like Disney saying, okay, it's fine that you trained on our content, and now we are giving you the permission to use them for 3 years in a 3-year licensing deal, and we're going to give you money. Very interesting. Yeah, it's very much an interlinking of the businesses. So it's going to be a fascinating one to see, because Disney is an absolute behemoth, a huge company, and they are an IP company. They own intellectual property. That's how they make their money. So for them to open it up to Sora will be very, very interesting. Strange timing too, just as development of Sora has been put on hold for 8 weeks. They basically said, we're not touching it while we sort out our main models. So this is a bit of an odd timing, but I'm sure they have their reasons. Okay, I've talked for an hour, so I'm going to finish up. Thank you so much. If you are not already subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the newsletter. In that, you'll get a written summary of what's been covered in the live stream, as well as links to the YouTube video, which is all cleaned up and tidied. So you can find it all there. Oh dear, my embeds are broken. That's something to fix. Good old vibe coding. As well, you can join the community. So the community is totally free. All of this is free. So the community is bundled in with the newsletter. So there will be the live stream in the morning, and then discussion of what was on the live stream inside of the community, and a newsletter version for you to kind of keep up to date with what's going on as well. There are also a bunch of courses all available on the website. There's a full 10-week course about how to start a business using artificial intelligence. Niche navigators about working out what business you should start, etc., etc. AI Building 101 is vibe coding. Like, there's a lot of information here, as well as about 90 plus playbooks, also going into a lot of details about what kind of businesses and what kind of things you can do with AI to make money, because that's my focus: AI, marketing, and business. Awesome. Thank you. So make sure you are subscribed over on the newsletter and join the community. Also, it really helps if you can subscribe on YouTube as well. We're about to hit 11,000 subscribers. It is speeding up, which is awesome. So thank you so much for that. and I will see you on Monday. I'm going to spend the weekend playing around with GPT 5.2 properly. I'd love to hear what everyone else thinks about it too, because me give my opinion is one opinion, but we need more. So if you hop into the community, I'll stick up a thread saying, hey, how's everyone finding it? Good, bad? What do you think? So come join the discussion in there. Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody, and I'll see you next week.